Chapter 439. Our king has finally returned. The vast sea stretched endlessly. The mention of returning to his ancestral land brought a hint of excitement to the voice of the Azure Flood Dragon King. He clearly yearned to see his homeland once again. This also indirectly proved that the Azure Flood Dragon King had diligently protected the Great Chan without ever secretly returning to his homeland for a brief visit. Now, he finally had the chance to revisit it. It has been so long since I last visited. I wonder if the Azure Flood Dragon clan has birthed any new kings, he pondered. It should be possible, given the existence of the ancestral land and the many descendants with rich bloodlines in our clan. The Azure Flood Dragon King wasn't certain. After all, much could have changed over the years. The two continued flying deep into the ocean, journeying for several days. The distance was vast, and Lin Fei was uncertain whether the ancestral land of the Azure Flood Dragon clan was in the sea or on an island. However, he soon saw several specks of islands in the ocean. The closer they got to these islands, the more excited the Azure Flood Dragon King became. Azure Flood Dragon King, are these islands the territory of your clan? Lin Fei asked. The Azure Flood Dragon King responded with enthusiasm, indeed. While my Azure Flood Dragon clan may not be the most powerful in the ocean, the emergence of king-level beings has allowed us to claim these islands. Although we can live in the sea, we prefer the land and cannot always stay underwater. Having islands as a base also aids in the reproduction and prosperity of our clan. Lin Fei understood. As they rapidly descended to one of the islands, they immediately sensed something amiss. Blood. The air was thick with the smell of fresh blood. Delving deeper into the island, they saw countless bodies strewn about. Among them were the corpses of Azure Flood dragons as well as various sea beasts, and not just of one kind. What has happened here? What befell my Azure Flood Dragon clan? The Azure Flood Dragon King was filled with anxiety. He could only guess that something dire had occurred. Yes, the ancestral land. Master, we must hurry to the ancestral land. If the Azure Flood Dragon clan is in danger, they would surely seek refuge there. The Azure Flood Dragon King seemed to suddenly realize something, his expression filled with urgency. Azure Flood Dragon King, whatever you wish to do, you don't need my permission anymore. On this island, you are free to do as you please. Lin Fei did not strictly bind the Azure Flood Dragon King. At this point, the Azure Flood Dragon King might even be the last of his kind. There's no need for Lin Fei to restrain him. Even if the Azure Flood Dragon King seeks revenge, Lin Fei would not hold him back. Thank you, Master. With that, the Azure Flood Dragon King transformed into a streak of light, rushing towards his ancestral land. At this moment, in the ancestral land of the Azure Flood Dragon clan, hundreds of Azure Flood dragons hid within, protected by the ancestral land's energy. This ancestral land is protected by a force similar to a formation built by the blood essence of previous Azure Flood Dragon Kings. As long as one is of the Azure Flood Dragon bloodline, they can activate this protection. Essentially, they are guarded by the power of their past kings. Once they enter the ancestral land and activate this protection, it can last for a very long time. However, the current situation in the ancestral land was dire. In the past, tens of thousands of Azure Flood dragons lived there. Now, only a few hundred remain, all survivors hiding inside, having done so for 3 months. Outside, exotic beasts constantly attack the protective essence left by the past kings, gradually draining it. If this continues, in less than half a year, the ancestral land will be completely breached and they will all perish. As for escaping, they never considered it. The entire island, inside and out, is filled with enemies. How could they escape? Once they leave the ancestral land, they will undoubtedly meet their end. It's surprising that we've been attacking the Azure Flood Dragon clan's ancestral land for so long without taking it. The Azure Flood Dragon clan is indeed extraordinary. They've always had king-level powerhouses in every generation. If it weren't for Green King consuming this generation's Azure Flood Dragon King from the beginning, how could we have attacked their ancestral land? But it's Green King who's more formidable, even consuming this generation's Azure Flood Dragon King in a single gulp. Such power is terrifying. What exactly is Green King's true form? It's intriguing. Ever since he appeared, breaking through several major clans in the seas, no king-level powerhouse has been a match for him. Never speak of it or even ask. The true form of Green King is a top secret. Rumor has it that whoever has seen Green King's true form has died. For a moment, all the sea beasts fell silent. Sea beasts are not devoid of intelligence. In fact, many sea beasts are no different from cultivators, possessing high intellect. They all serve under Green King. Yet, the foundation of Green King remains a mystery. Hardly anyone knows his true form. However, upon his emergence, he was dominant, defeating numerous king-level powerhouses and rapidly expanding his influence. This time, Green King's overwhelming power arrived, intending to subjugate the Azure Flood Dragon clan. However, the clan resisted. As a result, with a single command from Green King, he razed their island and nearly exterminated the Azure Flood Dragon clan. However, when they reached the ancestral land of the Azure Flood Dragon, it proved difficult to conquer. Even the king-level exotic beast failed. Green King seemed to be held up by something else and couldn't get away, and thus, they laid siege to the ancestral land for 3 months. These Azure Flood Dragons are really stubborn. Why wouldn't they want to serve under Green King? They've brought about their own extinction. It's a pity. Even if they wanted to surrender now, it's too late. Green King has ordered the extermination of the Azure Flood Dragon clan in his fury. In a few more months, the Azure Flood Dragon clan will undoubtedly be exterminated. It's such a shame. The Azure Flood Dragon clan was once the overlord of the seas for thousands of miles. Look at their fate now. The sea beast sighed. Weren't they in the same situation? Defeated and then subjugated by Green King. The Azure Flood Dragons, however, were unfortunate. They angered Green King and now faced annihilation. Inside the ancestral land, many Azure Flood Dragons trembled in fear, devoid of hope after 3 months of waiting. What's the use of waiting a few more months? The outcome remains inevitable. How has my Azure Flood Dragon clan come to such a fate? Suddenly, a strange, even somewhat frustrated voice reached the ears of many exotic beasts. What is that? Many Azure Flood Dragons inside the ancestral land perked up upon hearing this, staring intently outside. The exotic beasts under Green King were equally astonished, turning to look behind. At that moment, a massive figure slowly flew from the void beyond the ancestral land. This colossal figure, stretching thousands of meters and emanating a terrifying oppressive aura, was suppressing them on a fundamental, life-based level. Our king, our king. Wasn't our king consumed by Green King? It's the previous king, no, the one before the last, or even further back. The Azure Flood Dragon bloodline within it is unmistakable. He is our king. Our king has finally returned. Inside the ancestral land, hundreds of Azure Flood Dragons, one after the other, surged with renewed vigor, their eyes flashing with joy and fervor. They finally had a king once more. Their king had returned. Chapter 440. The mysterious Green King, the Azure Flood Dragon King in danger. An Azure Flood Dragon King? How can it be? Wasn't the Azure Flood Dragon King devoured by the Green King? Could there possibly be another king within the Azure Flood Dragon clan? A wave of panic swept through the many sea beasts. A king? Anything below that level could hardly harm a king. He's nearly invincible. Die. The Azure Flood Dragon King was seething with anger. With a swipe of its gigantic claw, countless sea beasts were turned to dust. The king opened its enormous mouth, reminiscent of a black hole, and began to devour everything in sight, leaving nothing behind. Perhaps there are more sea beasts on the island, but it no longer matters to the king. All it wanted was to assess the remaining numbers of the Azure Flood Dragon clan. Come out, you're safe now. The king's voice echoed through the void. Harnessing the bloodline of the Azure Flood Dragon within him, he effortlessly lifted the ancestral land's protective barrier. Seeing this, the Azure Flood Dragons inside finally confirmed their king's return. All hail the king. Hundreds of Azure Flood Dragons prostrated themselves, paying their respects to their monarch. The king, voice trembling, lamented, only a few hundred left. Yes, my lord. Out of the tens of thousands of our kin, only these few remain. My king, from which generation are you? The Azure Flood Dragon asked cautiously. I am the 36th generation king of the Azure Flood Dragon clan. The 36th generation? That's from tens of thousands of years ago, right? My lord, thankfully you've returned. Our 39th generation king was consumed by the Green King. If you had returned even a moment later, our entire clan would have been wiped out. Relief washed over the Azure Flood Dragon clan. They were lucky to have the 36th generation king return. Over the years, many kings of the clan had gone missing. These kings, blessed with long lives, would sometimes venture out and never return. Thus, despite their long lifespans, the clan had seen over 30 generations. But occasionally, a king would return. Like now, when the return of the Azure Flood Dragon King came at the most critical juncture for their clan's survival. It could be said that the Azure Flood Dragon clan was truly fortunate. There's still one that got away. To think the Azure Flood Dragon clan still had a king-level existence. I was hoping to see any other hidden strengths the Azure Flood Dragon clan might possess. But all I waited for was you, the Azure Flood Dragon King. Suddenly, an unfamiliar voice came from behind the Azure Flood Dragon King. Slowly, a man emerged, stepping forward with a certain nonchalance. Upon seeing him, the faces of the Azure Flood Dragon clan members went pale. Their voices trembling, they warned, "My lord, that's the Green King." The Azure Flood Dragon King squinted slightly, instantly realizing that the Green King wasn't a true human cultivator. Neither martial king nor nascent soul, but an exotic beast just like himself. Yet, oddly, this beast could assume a human form. Such transformations among sea creatures weren't uncommon. What truly astonished him was the Green King's power. How could he devour a king-level exotic beast, especially one from the 39th generation, in one bite? "My lord, you must tread carefully around the Green King," they advised. "No exotic beast has ever seen his true form and lived. If things go south, you should escape. As long as you live, our clan still stands a chance." "Yes, my lord, please flee," the others chimed in. Despite their pleas, the Azure Flood Dragon King's temperament remained unchanged. Even after being imprisoned for tens of thousands of years, he was still fiery and quick-tempered. Leaving now was not an option for him. Even if it meant death, he would never retreat. With this, the king, in all his massive glory, charged directly at the Green King. His strongest asset was always his body, and the same went for true dragons, masters of close combat. But the Green King just smiled and with a simple push of his hand, a tremendous force blasted towards the Azure Flood Dragon King. The sheer power of the push left the Azure Flood Dragon King gasping for air as if suffocating. The pressure was immense, making him feel as though death was imminent. Crash! With a mere nudge from Green King, the Azure Flood Dragon King was hurled by a formidable force and sent soaring through the air before plummeting heavily to the ground, leaving a gaping crater in its wake. All who witnessed stood agape. None had expected that Green King, with just an effortless shove, without even invoking his true form, would topple the Azure Flood Dragon King. It was as though the latter, in Green King's presence, was utterly defenseless, sheer domination. Everyone knew that an exotic beast's strength lay in its true form. Had Green King unleashed his true form, he would have likely devoured the Azure Flood Dragon King, much like he did with the one from the 36th generation. Roar! The Azure Flood Dragon King's fury was uncontainable. He was the venerable Azure Flood Dragon King, yet, against another monarch of exotic beasts, he couldn't even force his opponent to reveal the true form. Such a reality was an utter disgrace. With the Azure Flood Dragon King's enraged roar, suddenly, the entire ancestral land quaked intensely. The ancestral land of the Azure Flood Dragon clan, rich with the vital essence of generations of Flood Dragon Kings. Now, the present Flood Dragon King invoked a secret technique, harnessing the essences of his predecessors, gathering their collective strength. This arcane skill was exclusive to the lineage of Flood Dragon Kings. The one that Green King had consumed had been devoured before reaching these ancestral lands. Hence, he had no chance to marshal these essences. Yet now, the Azure Flood Dragon King summoned the power from the essences of generations past. Drops after drops, in dozens or even hundreds, emanated from the ancestral land. Converging in the sky, radiating an ominous aura. Roar! As the Azure Flood Dragon King let out a defiant bellow, those numerous essences seemed to manifest into phantom images of Azure Flood Dragons. Two forms, one towering and the other subordinate, lunged at Green King, determined to subdue him in one swift move. To the onlookers, Green King seemed to regard the hundreds of essences as insignificant. But Green King was well aware those hundreds of essences, in truth, activated a mystical formation from the Azure Flood Dragon ancestral land. The power of the formation, now fully awakened. Invisible forces converged from every direction, pressing down hard upon him. This oppressive force was far superior to the Azure Flood Dragon King's strength. Perhaps even more than tenfold. However, as the Azure Flood Dragon King charged towards Green King, a sly smile crept upon Green King's lips. With a movement swift as lightning, he reached out, grasping the head of the Azure Flood Dragon King, and slammed it down with tremendous force. Boom! The ground crumbled, leaving another massive pit. The Azure Flood Dragon King was battered and bruised by this dreadful power. Such wounds wouldn't be lethal. Yet, what stunned him was how Green King, even under the formation's oppression, could so effortlessly subdue him. Weak, truly weak, Green King remarked. I had thought, given the Azure Dragon lineage in your clan, there might be some impressiveness. But it seems you remain pitifully feeble. Enough. I shan't toy with you any longer. Let's end this once and for all. It seemed Green King had been holding back. Now, he prepared to consume the Azure Flood Dragon King and bring everything to a close. Chapter 441. The true form of Green King revealed. Azure Flood Dragon, it seems you've encountered a dilemma, a voice echoed. At that moment, a silhouette slowly stepped in from the ancestral lands beyond. Master! The Azure Flood Dragon King exclaimed with evident joy. The title Master was now uttered with genuine reverence. Master! The Green King's eyes shimmered with a hint of surprise. You must be the martial king of the human race. It's unexpected that the esteemed Azure Flood Dragon King would be tamed by a mere human martial king. Before the Green King could finish his words, Lin Fei's figure blurred. With swift precision, he thrust forward with a forceful punch, sending the Green King hurtling through the air. Lin Fei's movement was lightning fast, without any prior indication. In just a fleeting moment, the Green King was airborne. He crashed into the ground, creating a massive crater, mirroring the impact of the Azure Flood Dragon King earlier. Silence. An eerie stillness. Even the Azure Flood Dragon King was taken aback. It recognized the might of Lin Fei, perhaps even surpassing its peak strength. But this was the Green King they were speaking of. The Azure Flood Dragon King had summoned the power of the ancestral lands, combining all its forces. Yet, they couldn't touch the indomitable Green King. And now, a mere punch from Lin Fei had sent him reeling. This wasn't a mere ambush. Given the Green King's prowess, the idea of an ambush was implausible. Even if the Azure Flood Dragon King were to attack him outright, the Green King would likely remain unscathed. Such was the transformative power when strength reached a certain pinnacle. The Azure Flood Dragon King felt as if the Green King had undergone a metamorphosis. Even though both were king-tier exotic beasts, the Green King toyed with the Azure Flood Dragon King as if he were a mere plaything. There was no equilibrium between their strengths. The Green King could easily crush the Azure Flood Dragon King. Yet, with a single blow, Lin Fei had thrown the Green King off balance. Such a feat was far from simple. A rumble echoed, causing the earth to tremble, and the Green King emerged once more. Lin Fei stuttered the Green King with a hint of bewilderment. The punch he had just delivered was no ordinary strike. It was imbued with the power of the four symbols, harnessing the forces of earth, fire, water, and wind from his four bloodlines. This punch contained the triple Yin true fire bloodline, with genuine fire that could silently incinerate. One misstep and one could be reduced to ashes by the triple Yin true fire. Likewise, the Grandian Wind Dao bloodline was just as potent, its chilling winds capable of exposing bones. Yet now, be it the triple Yin true fire or the Grandian wind, both seemed ineffective against the Green King. He remained unscathed. Lin Fei's eyes narrowed slightly. Only one explanation was plausible: the Green King's physical body was incredibly robust, having reached an unparalleled extreme. Hence, neither the triple Yin true fire nor the Grandian wind could harm him in the slightest. Boom, boom, boom. The Green King charged forward. In human form, he clashed wildly with Lin Fei. In an instant, the two exchanged dozens of blows. It was a pure contest of strength. Lin Fei exploded with his bloodline power. while the Green King boasted a formidable physique. Their clashes seemed to break the very void itself, causing the emptiness to show traces of dark cracks. Retreat. The Azure Flood Dragon King quickly protected his clan members and retreated frantically. Under such circumstances, even with the protection of the ancestral land formation, they were in peril. Such power could break through the formation of the ancestral land. The two combatants had already left the ancestral land of the Azure Flood Dragon clan, hovering above the vast sea. At this moment, the Green King's subordinates who were still on the island seemed to have realized their leader had met a worthy opponent. All stopped in their tracks. Looking up at the void above, they refrained from engaging with the Azure Flood Dragon King. The reason was simple. The outcome between them was of little significance. Only the result between Lin Fei and the Green King would determine the ultimate victor. Suddenly, both halted. Each retreated a few steps. The righteous indignation that had previously shown on the Green King's face vanished entirely, returning to the calm demeanor he had shown before. It seemed as though his earlier expression was merely a facade. He remained utterly composed, never acting rashly under any circumstance. Just a warm-up earlier, the Green King commented. "How do I address you?" "Lin Fei." Lin Fei stared coldly at the Green King. From the Green King, he felt a hint of threat. This demonstrated that the Green King was no ordinary being. Even the Triple Yin True Fire and the Grand Yin Wind Dao couldn't affect him. He was truly extraordinary. "Lin Fei, you deliberately led me to hover over the sea to avoid the aftermath of our battle affecting the ancestral land of the Azure Flood Dragon King, didn't you? Now that we are here, far away from the island, no matter how we fight, the ancestral land will remain untouched. It's time you showed your true capabilities." The Green King smirked, revealing his understanding of Lin Fei's intentions. "Green King, I'm very curious about your true form," Lin Fei expressed his intrigue. "Well, let's see if you have the ability to make me reveal it," the Green King responded with a challenge. "HMPH." Lin Fei snorted coldly. "Boon." In the next moment, Lin Fei no longer held back, instantly activating his 4 bloodline powers. The power of the 4 symbols. True form Martial King. Or, the true form of the 4 symbols. Growing to an immense size, 100,000 meters tall. A terrifying aura spread in all directions. Good, very good. Upon witnessing Lin Fei's true form of the 4 symbols, the Green King showed no fear but exhilaration, charging directly towards Lin Fei. Boom. Lin Fei threw a punch, landing squarely on the Green King. Instantly, a terrifying force reverberated throughout the void. How powerful was Lin Fei's true form of the 4 symbols? Moreover, he also had the strength of 4 bloodlines. It wasn't as simple as just adding the power of the 4 bloodlines. It was a tenfold increase in strength, perhaps even more. With this first punch, Lin Fei shattered the Green King's illusion. In terms of strength, the power of Lin Fei's true form of the 4 symbols already surpassed that of the Green King. Of course, obliterating the Green King was still not possible. After all, Lin Fei had more than just the 4 symbols' true form. Especially considering the Green King's true form had yet to reveal itself, Lin Fei still had to remain cautious. Heh, not bad, very impressive. It seems I can't contend with you without revealing my true form. However, everyone who has seen my true form has died. The Green King sneered. The next moment, he finally showed his true form. Boom. An aura, terrifying to its core, spread throughout the void. Lin Fei stood unwavering, his gaze firmly fixed on the Green King. The humanoid figure of the Green King had disappeared. Or rather, the human-shaped Green King was no more. What stood before him was the Green King's true self. Lin Fei's eyes widened in shock, and his heart raced. It seemed he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Before him was an incomparably massive green carp. Yes, a green carp. A type of fish found in rivers and lakes, not associated with the sea at all. Carps couldn't even live in the ocean. But this was the Green King's true form. The Green King was actually a green carp. It was baffling. And incredibly shocking. Who could have imagined that the being stirring trouble in the vast sea was a green carp, a fish native to rivers and lakes? Lin Fei finally understood why every exotic beast that had seen the Green King's true form ended up dead. The Green King clearly didn't want anyone to know his true form was that of a green carp. After all, green carp belong to rivers and lakes. If you were to rule a stretch of the ocean, it's possible other marine creatures might harbor suspicions or doubts. But here lay the question. How could a mere carp possess such overwhelming power? So much so that it could swallow the 39th generation Azure Flood Dragon King and dominate a vast ocean territory. There had to be a secret hidden within the Green King. Perhaps an earth-shattering one. Chapter 442. The power of the world is invincible. Overpowering the Green King. The Green King revealed his true form and spoke in human language. Now that you've seen my true self, you must die. Boon. With a slight movement from the Green King, his massive body appeared in front of Lin Fei in an instant. Such speed, it was almost like teleportation. A fish out of water still exhibited such terrifying power in the void. Bang! Lin Fei was sent flying with a single blow. He crashed heavily into the vast ocean. Splash! Soon, Lin Fei burst forth from the water. 5 Elements Bloodline. Immediately, Lin Fei activated his 5 Elements Bloodline. Lin knew that relying solely on the 4 Symbols Bloodline or just the 5 Elements Bloodline might not be enough against the Green King. Therefore, he simultaneously harnessed both bloodlines, merging them completely. A brand new force was born. The power of the world. Lin Fei's true martial king form was still only 100,000 meters tall. But the power of the world now enveloped his entire body. With the power of the world, Lin Fei felt as if every fiber of his being was filled with unparalleled strength. Come on! With a mighty roar from Lin Fei, his 100,000-foot figure punched at the Green King. The Green King, not to be outdone, swept with his colossal tail. Given the Green King's strength, that single tail swipe could have sent Lin Fei, with his previous 4 Symbols bloodline strength, flying. However, now that Lin Fei was using the power of the world, the situation was entirely different. Bang! Their forces clashed fiercely. A hint of a smile was still visible on the Green King's face. He believed that for Lin Fei to meet his force with force was sheer folly. The Green King's power was superior to all exotic beasts. To confront it directly would be self-defeating. However, as their powers met, the smile on the Green King's face froze. In that collision, he felt an unimaginably vast power, almost sending him flying. Moreover, his tail had been pierced right through. The part of his flesh that was pierced vanished instantly. Meaning, it was a permanent loss. How is this possible? The Green King was again sent flying by Lin Fei's punch. It seemed he was still reeling from the shock. How did he get injured? But Lin Fei wouldn't give him the chance to recover. Lin Fei transformed into a streak of light, drawing close to the Green King again. Bang, bang, bang. Lin Fei unleashed a barrage of punches, filling the sky with shadows of his fists. Each punch was real, and each one was infused with the power of the world. The reason Lin Fei could send the Green King flying was not due to his inherent strength, but because of the overwhelming power of the world. Lin Fei's power of the world was seemingly omnipotent. When used offensively, its power is multiplied. In defense, almost no force could break through the protection of the power of the world. Furthermore, the power of the world could even seal and suppress opponents. It truly was all-powerful. Such a comprehensive and novel force, Lin Fei had never experienced anything like it before. Even Lin Fei felt that perhaps the legendary divine power wasn't any more impressive than this. The endless shadows of punches from Lin Fei rained down, and the Green King couldn't withstand them any longer. It screamed in agony. No, what about my immortal body? Nobody can kill me. How could you possibly obliterate my flesh? I am the true undying God. Only a god-tier being can harm my immortal body. Stop it, stop now. The Green King was breaking apart. Its body was riddled with holes. Each punch from Lin Fei was obliterating numerous flesh particles. Even if the Green King's body was powerful, bordering on immortality, it was utterly ineffective against Lin Fei's power of the world. It was still being utterly obliterated. Seeing the severely damaged Green King, who was so overbearing just moments ago, Lin Fei realized that even escaping now would be a luxury for it. Lin Fei was very clear that without the power of the world, which seemingly had no weaknesses, even his 4 symbols true form or 5 elements true form probably couldn't subdue the Green King. The strength of the Green King's body was simply inconceivable. How could a king-tier exotic beast possess such a formidable body? The Green King has a secret. Lin Fei's power of the world surged forth, enveloping the Green King's entire body in an instant. The power of the world rapidly obliterated the Green King's body until only its head remained. Yet, despite this, it still hadn't died. As long as Lin Fei let go of the Green King, it would fully recover in no time. That was the terrifying aspect of the Green King. Of all the king-tier beings Lin Fei had ever encountered, besides the Phoenix, the Green King was the strongest. Even to some extent, the Green King might be stronger than the Phoenix. Share your secret, Lin Fei said slowly. You've expanded so aggressively, causing wars in the marine territories. You surely must have a reason. And after consuming so many azure flood dragons, what is your purpose? A mere carp, even one from rivers and lakes, growing to such a level was unimaginable. It wasn't any powerful variant species. The Green King must have an earth-shattering secret. Lin Fei wasn't as interested in the Azure Flood Dragon King or the ancestral land of the Azure Flood Dragon clan anymore. He only wanted to uncover the secret that the Green King hid. If I reveal my secret, would you let me go? The Green King inquired. If I promise to, would you trust me? Lin Fei responded. The Green King fell silent. Indeed, even if Lin Fei promised to release him, there was no guarantee. There was nothing binding him. I can offer you my bloodline, the Green King said seriously. You will control my bloodline forever. My life and death will be in your hands. You won't need to worry about any betrayal from me. As long as you promise not to kill me, I'll tell you everything I know. He intended to become a servant, just like the Azure Flood Dragon King. Once he acknowledged Lin Fei as his master, Lin Fei would then have the power over his life and death. This was a top-tier king-level exotic beast, one that could not be seen as ordinary. Lin Fei truly didn't need to be ruthless. The Green King could be a great asset, but of course, that's only if he could control it. If he couldn't, Lin Fei would, without a doubt, eliminate the Green King. Fine, hand over your bloodline, Lin Fei agreed. The Green King finally breathed a sigh of relief. However, when the moment came to part with his bloodline, the Green King hesitated. Once he gave up his bloodline, his fate would be in someone else's hands. He would be enslaved, forever bound. Yet, he didn't want to die. He was just a regular carp who encountered a fortunate event that allowed him to progress to his current state. If he refused, Lin Fei would undoubtedly kill him. After weighing his options, the Green King gritted his teeth and handed over his bloodline. Lin Fei extended his hand, gently touching the bloodline, which then merged into him. Instantly, he felt a connection with the Green King. Through this connection, he could annihilate the Green King in an instant, and the king would be powerless against it. Well done, Green King. Now, tell me, what kind of fortuitous encounter did you have? Lin Fei questioned, staring intently at the Green King. How did you suddenly become a top-tier king-level exotic beast in the vast seas, even more terrifying than many ancient and strange species? Lin Fei's gaze was unrelenting. He wanted to uncover the secret of the Green King. Taking a deep breath, the Green King's expression became complex. Eventually, he slowly began, it's simple. It's because I encountered the legendary Dragon Gate. Chapter 443. The Secret of the Green King. The legend of the carp leaping over the Dragon Gate. The Dragon Gate. Lin Fei was taken aback. In fact, the legend of the Dragon Gate has been handed down for ages. Rumors say that in ancient times, there was a dragon gate that appeared in rivers and lakes. Any creature that leaped over this gate would transform into a dragon. There was once a carp that succeeded, giving rise to the saying carp leaping over the dragon's gate. Considering that the Green King's original form was a carp, could it be? Where is this Dragon Gate? Lin Fei's curiosity was piqued. He naturally wanted to see this mysterious gate for himself. Shaking his head, the Green King responded, the Dragon Gate has vanished. I'm not sure where it originally came from or where it disappeared. All I know is that after I fortuitously leaped over the Dragon Gate, I became sentient. Moreover, I instinctively knew the methods of cultivation. Even though I still appear as a carp, I can clearly feel that I'm no longer just a carp but, perhaps, the legendary dragonfish. Once I reached the peak of the king level, I felt that to progress further, I needed to transform into a real dragon, and that required journeying to the vast oceans. I didn't know how to undergo this transformation, so I followed my instincts and consumed exotic beasts that resonated with the real dragon bloodline within me, like the azure flood dragons. Their blood seemed to greatly enhance my own. Perhaps, with more time and consumption, I might find the path to becoming a true dragon. Lin Fei gazed at the Green King, thinking how incredibly fortunate he was to encounter something as legendary as the Dragon Gate. Yet, from the Green King's description, Lin Fei believed that this Dragon Gate might be a powerful magic treasure. However, the capabilities of this treasure were beyond imagination. To transform an ordinary carp into a creature with a true dragon's bloodline with the potential of a full transformation into a dragon was staggering. Such a magic treasure was unfathomable. Even a Dao artifact, which Lin Fei possessed, couldn't compare to its celestial abilities. This had to be a magic treasure far surpassing Dao artifacts. Wait, if you're to transform into a dragon, you have the bloodline of a true dragon inside you. Lin Fei's gaze sharpened as he stared at the Green King. It should be the bloodline of a true dragon, the Green King replied hesitantly, feeling uneasy under Lin Fei's intense scrutiny. Lin Fei did not press further. Instead, he released the Green King, taking him back to the ancestral land of the Azure Dragon clan. Master, that's... The Azure Flood Dragon King immediately noticed the Green King, eyes filled with murderous intent. Azure Flood Dragon King, from now on, Green King will be like you, Lin Fei said to the Azure Flood Dragon King. The Azure Flood Dragon King was taken aback. He clearly understood Lin Fei's words. The Green King, like the Azure Flood Dragon King, would now be following Lin Fei. He was to put aside his past grievances. Although the Azure Flood Dragon King was reluctant, he knew he couldn't defeat the Green King. Moreover, without Lin Fei's intervention, he would have been consumed by the Green King. Therefore, he could only reply respectfully, "Yes, Master." The Green King didn't even glance at the Azure Flood Dragon King. Even though he was now under Lin Fei's control, he didn't think highly of him, considering him a mere defeated opponent. However, despite the heavy losses the Azure Flood Dragon clan faced, with only a few hundred remaining, their lineage was not completely wiped out. With time, they could proliferate and their clan might see glorious days once again. Azure Flood Dragon King, open the ancestral land, Lin Fei commanded. He hadn't forgotten the purpose of this journey. He was searching for the true dragon bloodline to replenish the Azure Dragon blood within him and make his lineage complete. He hoped to find what he needed in the ancestral land of the Azure Flood Dragon clan. Following the command, the Azure Flood Dragon King opened the ancestral land and Lin Fei entered. It looked deserted as if there was nothing there. But deep within, there was a tomb. Is this the tomb of the Azure Dragon? The tomb of a true dragon? Lin Fei thought with surprise. It was unexpected to find a tomb of a real dragon here. This meant there could be a dragon's body buried beneath. While Lin Fei wasn't interested in the corpse itself, he was keen on the true dragon bloodline inside it. Azure Flood Dragon King, I need the bloodline of the true dragon. Therefore, I need to check if there's an Azure Dragon's body inside this tomb. I need to excavate. Lin Fei informed the Azure Flood Dragon King, out of respect. After all, this tomb, being the resting place of a true dragon, was the most sacred place for the Azure Flood Dragon clan. It was, in a sense, the origin of their lineage. The existence of the Azure Dragon was what led to the emergence of the Azure Flood Dragon clan. Master, please proceed, the Azure Flood Dragon King said with gritted teeth. He was in no position to deny Lin Fei's request. His fate was in Lin Fei's hands, what right did he have to refuse? All right, let's begin. Lin Fei reached out his hand and struck the tomb of the true dragon. With a loud bang, the tomb burst open. Lin Fei's consciousness extended, spreading throughout the entire island. Surprisingly, the tomb of the true dragon wasn't just in this location but spanned the entire island. The whole island was the tomb of the true dragon. As Lin Fei attuned himself to the tomb, he immediately sensed the dragon's skeletal remains within. The passage of time had been long, leaving behind only a skeleton. Even true dragons decay. Either this dragon didn't die of natural causes or its body simply couldn't withstand the test of time, leading to its decay. All that remained was a mere skeleton. But even as just a set of bones, it emanated an awe-inspiring and terrifying aura. Both the Azure Flood Dragon King and the Green King felt an overwhelming pressure, a suppression originating from their bloodlines. The dragon, superior to all beings. The Azure Flood Dragon Clan and the Green King, in their true forms, are akin to carp. By nature, they inherently feared dragons. Their bloodlines were suppressed. Unless they transform into dragons, no matter how powerful they become, they would tremble in the presence of a dragon, unable to fully exhibit their strengths. This was the suppression of life and bloodline. Without a doubt, these were the remains of a true dragon. Ancestor. The Azure Flood Dragon King immediately knelt, followed by the rest of his clan. While their bloodlines felt suppressed, there was also a sense of familiarity. These bones were likely the remains of the ancestor of the Azure Dragon Clan, from whom the Azure Flood Dragon Clan descended. However, Lin Fei frowned. Indeed, a true dragon was buried in the tomb, but only its bones remained. With only the bones left, there was no bloodline. Where would Lin Fei find the true dragon's blood now? Are there any other dragon tombs besides this one? Lin Fei asked. No, only this one. Has your Azure Flood Dragon Clan preserved anything like a drop of the Azure Dragon's essence or blood? If we had something like that, would our clan be in this dire state? We would have used it long ago. Lin Fei fell silent. Indeed, if they possessed the dragon's blood, the Azure Flood Dragon Clan would have used it. Why would they wait until now? But without the dragon's blood, what could he do? The blood of the true dragon. Lin Fei's gaze shifted to the Green King, a glint of realization in his eyes. Chapter 444. The ninth bloodline, the true dragon bloodline. The Deep Sea Overlord, the Kun clan. The blood of the true dragon, isn't it in you? Lin Fei stared at Green King, making him feel uneasy. Master, what are you talking about? Green King asked with a trembling voice. Green King, since you've already crossed the dragon gate and are no longer a green carp, but a dragon fish, don't you have the bloodline of the true dragon within you? Lin Fei inquired. Green King's heart skipped a beat. Had Lin Fei set his sights on the true dragon bloodline in his body? But the blood of the Azure Flood Dragon King also contained a dragon bloodline. Regardless, Green King dared not deceive Lin Fei and said bravely, Master, it's true that I have the bloodline of the true dragon in my body. If you need it, I can offer you some. Lin Fei, picking up on the implied message, glanced at Azure Flood Dragon King and commented, the Azure Flood Dragon King has the blood of the Azure Dragon in him, which is also a dragon bloodline, but it's too diluted. You're different. You've just crossed the dragon gate, and your true dragon bloodline is abundant. Moreover, you can even increase the bloodline in your body. All you need to do is devour, right? Consume whatever exotic beasts you need, as long as they aren't mythical creatures or divine grade beasts. This way, you can accumulate a vast amount of true dragon blood, and I can extract your bloodline without harming you. Are you willing? What could Green King say? Even if Lin Fei decided to completely drain the blood from his body, what could Green King possibly object to? His very life and death were at Lin Fei's whim. So, without hesitation, Green King nodded, Master, I agree. Why don't you try integrating my bloodline into yours first? Accepting the suggestion, Lin Fei made a move. Green King promptly produced a few droplets of essence blood, each drop rich with his potent true dragon bloodline. Lin Fei integrated it into his body, pure and concentrated, freshly taken from Green King who had just transformed. Soon after, a system notification echoed in Lin Fei's mind. Your Azure Dragon bloodline has absorbed a significant amount of true dragon blood, increasing the cultivation progress by 50%. Your Azure Dragon bloodline was too diluted. With the influx of true dragon blood, it's becoming diluted and is gradually transforming into a true dragon bloodline. System. Lin Fei immediately accessed the system to check. Host, Lin Fei. Martial Arts Realm, Late Stage Martial King. Supreme Saber Dao Bloodline, Perfection. Grand Yin Wind Dao Bloodline, Perfection. Triple Yin True Fire Bloodline, Perfection. Supreme Young Heavenly Thunder Bloodline, Perfection. Annihilation Frost Bloodline, Perfection. Earth Pulse Divine Mountain Spirit Communication Bloodline Perfection. Endless Vitality Greenwood Bloodline Perfection. Phoenix Bloodline Perfection. True Dragon Bloodline Beginner 82%. Looking at the system panel, Lin Fei noticed that he had a total of 9 bloodlines. However, the 9th one, originally the Azure Dragon bloodline, had transformed into the True Dragon bloodline. This was the first time Lin Fei had encountered such a situation. It was likely due to the fact that the Azure Dragon bloodline was a derivative of the True Dragon bloodline. The change was probably influenced by the dominant True Dragon bloodline from Green King. At the moment, the True Dragon bloodline was just at a beginner level. However, Lin Fei had only absorbed a single drop of essence blood. There were more to come. Lin Fei continued to merge with the essence blood from Green King. Your True Dragon bloodline has progressed to mastery. As Lin Fei incorporated more of the True Dragon bloodline, it quickly reached mastery. However, after reaching mastery, the progression slowed down. Especially after 10 drops, Green King seemed to be at his limit. Master, I. Understanding that Green King was reaching his breaking point, Lin Fei stopped. Green King, that's enough for today. Go and devour the sea beasts. Accumulate 10 drops of essence blood and bring them to me. If you encounter a sea beast that's too difficult to handle, come find me. But with your strength, I believe you'll manage. Lin Fei gave his orders and Green King responded, yes, master. He then left immediately, even taking his subordinates with him. As for escaping, that was impossible. If Lin Fei sensed Green King straying too far, he could annihilate him with a mere thought. Plus, with the connection of their bloodlines, there was a deep bond that would alert Lin Fei of any mischief. So, Lin Fei took a brief rest in the ancestral land of the Azure Flood Dragon clan. Meanwhile, the Azure Flood Dragon King began to settle the members of his clan, ensuring their propagation and selecting a new Azure Flood Dragon King. After all, the Azure Flood Dragon King couldn't stay on the island forever. He was Lin Fei's servant and had to return to guard Great Chan. Green King became even more brutal. At first, he was cautious, slowly expanding his territory. Under the guise of territorial expansion, he devoured some sea beasts, making it hard for other sea beasts to notice anything unusual. They were unaware that he was trying to increase his True Dragon bloodline. However, after being defeated by Lin Fei and becoming his servant, Green King no longer bothered to conceal his intentions and showed no restraint. Whenever he encountered a sea beast that could enhance his True Dragon bloodline, he would devour it immediately. His strength was formidable, making him a match for even the top king-level exotic beasts. It's probable that only ancient rare species could challenge him. Thus, in the nearby seas, Green King acted with impunity, wildly consuming countless sea beasts. But he didn't gain much from these actions himself. Every time his True Dragon bloodline surged, he felt closer to his transformation into a dragon. However, he had to crystallize the essence blood and hand it over to Lin Fei. Consequently, while Lin Fei's strength kept increasing, Green King remained stagnant. He even began to doubt if he would ever successfully transform into a dragon. However, Green King's reckless devouring of sea beasts eventually angered the titans among them. Those who had been lurking in the deep seas for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of years, genuine rulers of the deep, beings of myths and legends. At this moment, at the bottom of the deep sea, many sea beasts gathered, seemingly lamenting about something. Their cries echoed through the depths, if the ancestral spirit has grace, we hope he awakens. Great ancestor, if you don't wake up, we will be completely devoured. That Green King is too domineering. He's like a bottomless pit, crazily consuming the exotic beasts in the ocean. Our Kun clan is on the verge of extinction. Great ancestor, are you still there? This was the lament of the Kun clan from the depths of the sea. Legend spoke of a clan known as Kun in the deep sea. Their ancestor, a ruler of the deep sea, was the legendary Kun from myths. But nobody had ever seen this Kun. Even members of the Kun clan hadn't seen him. They had only heard rumors passed down through generations that their ancestor Kun was in deep slumber within the ocean depths, and they were instructed not to disturb him. But now, facing the threat of extermination, they had no choice but to seek help from their legendary ancestor.